Hey folks, happy to have you here. Welcome. Today, my guest is Nadja Muller. I have been working really hard on saying that correctly, so hopefully I got it right. Nadja and I have just finished recording together, and I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed our exploration and conversation together. Um, Nadja is someone who I've met in the last year. She and I are doing a year-long program together, exploring collective coherence and um, yeah, doing a year-long journey into what wants to happen on planet Earth right now in terms of the next iteration of humanity. And I just experience her as such an amazing friend in the journey of how can we best be here in support of collective flourishing and thriving. And today we get together and chat a little bit about an experience that we had together. I actually stayed in her home in Den Haag, which is a little bit south of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And she and I had a pretty mystical, shamanic kind of moment together the last morning that I was in her home, which we unpack a little bit together. It's the first time we've gotten a chance to really sit down and debrief what happened and what ultimately turned into Nadja birthing her authentic voice. And we chat a little bit about the field that we hang out in and what happens in the field when we become aware of the source of all that is, and what that experience is like. Of course, we're not only talking about this, we're speaking from it and having the experience in real time, so you can have the embodied transmission of what's happening and what we're exploring in real time, which I just feel so delicious about, because it's a big part of the intention or calling with this podcast is not just to speak about experiences, but to have the experience in the moment. So it feels good for that to be happening. And we also talk a bit about a workshop that we're hosting in Nadja's home next month in August. If it feels resonant for you and you'd like to come join us, we'll certainly welcome you to reach out and let us know. The way I would invite you to see if it's for you is if your body and your being are lighting up and saying this is for me, then that's a good sign that this is a resonant invitation. So would love to hear from you if that's the case, and honestly would love to hear from you anyway. I'd love to hear how it is for you to hear the show, how it is for you to be in the field with us as you're listening, and present with what's unfolding here. And I'd love and really appreciate if you could leave a review for the show. If you're feeling inspired and feeling impacted by the show, would love to hear about that through a review, and please share with anyone who you sense would resonate and want to know that these recordings are happening. I appreciate you considering doing that. Okay, I will leave it here for now, and I'm excited to introduce you to Nadja. Enjoy. Hey Nadja, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Forrest. Well, I'm so happy to be here with you and start talking about this experience that we just really by chance created, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were just checking in and landing before I hit record, and then we kind of started going. So I said, wait, let me get this going and hit the record. So a little context, you and I are in the Netherlands right now. In this moment, I'm in Amsterdam and you're in Den Haag, a little south of me. And I recently stayed in your home for, gosh, I don't know, maybe a week. And just had the best time hanging out with you and your mother and your daughter, and getting to spend time with you and your family. And the last morning I was there, you and I had a really powerful experience together, and you were just sharing some about that and how that was for you. So I would turn it over to you to share, just about the morning we had together. Maybe we can explore and chat more about that.
Yeah, it was really I remember in the morning I woke up and coming down, and then you just walked in from your walk in the park, and you were sharing how much you enjoyed that surrounding there, and that you were actually off food for like 3 days. And you were just following a complete natural inclination of your body, wasn't it? It was just, you were just checking in and you're like, nah, no food for today, right?
Yeah, it was not an intentional fast. My body just said, hey, I need a break. And so I ended up doing for like 100 hours, ultimately ended up being without food. But that morning we were together, it was, I think I was around hour 80 or something like that without eating. And yeah, we were talking about where strength comes from and where energy comes from, because I had just gotten back from the park and done a pretty sizable workout. I had done a ton of pull-ups and lots of movement and was feeling really strong, and just had this experience of where is all this energy coming from, because I haven't eaten anything in days and I feel so much strength and power and aliveness. And we were just talking about the source of that strength and the source of that power.
And it was, and it was like in that moment when we started talking. So we talked about many interesting like topics like that you and I interest, right? And there was something happening, like it wasn't just us, it was like the entire environment around it started kind of aligning itself or vibrating. It's sometimes really hard to find the right word for it, but somehow something was starting to align. The garden, the house, the energy in the house, you know, the way we were sitting, the plants there. And then suddenly from this, we started kind of dipping into something that became for me a really transformative experience. And it was so spontaneous. It was, I can't remember really exactly what triggered it, but you invited me to go into a body posture like this, right? And then standing up. So I'm not doing this because otherwise I'll lose the sound on the mic. So it was like this, and really flowing, like opening the throat and like really connecting it with the core. And I was just standing there, and there was so much stuff happening. Remember that?
Oh yeah. I was just watching you and watching your body and seeing the kind of gesture that you wanted to make. And I'm mindful some people are going to be receiving this in audio only. So Nadja is demonstrating a posture where she has her hands out over her head in like a power pose kind of posture. And then as you were doing that, there were different stuck points or blockages that I was just supporting you, like
big time,
resolving or dissolving.
And it was so interesting because it didn't start out that way. It was just, okay, we're just getting into something, right? And then suddenly when I was standing like this, I could, so like I'm standing again with my arms raised, I could really feel a blockage right here at this little groove here at the bottom of the neck. And there was a really strong blockage there. So you kind of said, okay, so what's there? What's wanting out there, right? And so there was a voice that kind of wanted out, and it was a voice that was just so not mine. It was like a hoarse voice, a really rough horse, as a hoarse voice, and it was almost like as if it were a different tongue that I could absolutely not pronounce, you know. And so there was a little voice in my back of my head that said, well, weirder things have happened, but it was a bit bizarre, wasn't it? And so this voice started, you kind of encouraged it to manifest, to just like come out, right? And it was so interesting because it landed in a field, and it was something, it had a certain quality to it. It had a certain power to it as well. And it was really like interesting how it had lodged itself there.
And I want to unpack this more with you, but how's it been for you since? I mean, ultimately you had a big clearing, a lot of energy that wasn't yours left, and then your innate, organic, you know, natural embodied energy was flowing freely through you. And we can talk more about that. But I also want to ask, like, coming to now, I mean, it's been, I don't know, a week since that happened, maybe.
Mm.
So how's it been, or how's it going?
So since then, so there were more things happening besides that hoarse voice. There was also then like a very flowy, dancey energy coming, and there was a snake, and then
Yeah,
people
yeah.
connecting all over the globe. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
And so after that, I really felt like it was almost a birth process of my authentic voice that has happened. And I'm not a shy person. I'm not like somebody who's not out there talking to people or sharing what I feel is truth or wisdom. But somehow there was always something, a blockage there. And I felt like after this, certain things started flowing so much more. So, for instance, we were part of a kind of workshop, of a training that we are following out of hard work in order to bring more of our authentic voice into the world of hard work and presenting it and visibility. So it's not your conventional kind of marketing, sales, training workshop, but something that goes really like deeper to the source. And in that event, there were like 30 people that were online, and there was Rick Tamlin who was holding that course. And he kind of got that there was something from my part. So he invited me to speak my truth. And so right away from the bat, I kind of said something that is actually, you could say, confrontational or disruptive or even controversial, if you like. And it absolutely cleared the room. So I was talking about codependence that I picked up, he was carrying very deeply. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning of the call, and you could see him like the panic, like the Zoom panic. It's not working, right? And so he had us wait for half an hour until they fixed their technical difficulties, and he had to take a soul off just to calm himself down, right? So I said, well, I feel you really care deeply, and there is a codependence trait in it. So because you've worked on your codependence, your shadow, but you still have the codependence with the world, and we are your mirrors. We care just as deeply, and we have the same trait. So what can we do in order to really clear that out for all of us? And boom, it just really opened it up. And the lovely thing of Rick is like, he's also somebody who's ready to embrace that. So he's not scared of allowing that kind of, you could almost say, disruption or disruptive voice into the room.
Mm-hmm. I'm just letting what you're sharing impact me right now. It's kind of hitting me in waves. There's a texture and that I feel listening to you, that I feel this texture of like a piercing, cut through, piercing energy of through the fog or through the mist, through all the noise. Like, here's the precise, clear, necessary point that needs to be shared.
Yeah, when you say this, what comes for me is this thing about there is so much noise in the world. All of us are making a lot of noise. And in it, what I often feel is like we make a lot of noise because we feel we are not heard. But what's actually required is that we hear ourselves. And then suddenly the noise starts dying away. And so what happened by, really using my authentic voice, suddenly the noise fell away and everybody could hear themselves again.
There's a permission giving in that.
There was a permission, and as you say, it was this clear cut through this fog, through this thick layer of noise that surrounds us all the time, somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm actually having the experience right now of almost like a gas leaving, there's a texture of a gas or a cloud or some kind of yeah, airy texture that's sort of on the way out. And I'm feeling uh there's more light here, more clarity, easier to see.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what becomes possible when you have this clarity and easier to see? Well, what happened for me, it was not a forced process. It was and I was definitely not trying to manipulate it. It felt like as if I had removed a blockage and suddenly something was moving.
Right.
And all I did was to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly also during this workshop, I started working on my signature talk, if you like, your TED talk, your big talk that you always wanted to give to the world, but you always had some words and you never knew how to put it in the right concept, right? So I started really working on this one, and it felt so real. And what I mean with real is like, I have been reading and listening to a lot of other people, and I can feel the resonance in it, what they share. And I can feel the wisdom, and I can pick up the word and I can use them again, almost as if I have the permission because they have been already spoken by someone else. I don't know if that makes any sense, what I'm saying right now. But that's how it felt for me. But in it, I always had a hard time. So I'm start touching also my collarbones right now to really voice me, or what was the wisdom that was being, let's say, where the resonance frequency was incited by other people sharing their wisdom, but what was really the thing that was sitting in me and wanted to come out. Mm-hmm. So I started letting this flow, like the real, authentic, lack of a better word, voice, but also wisdom, truth. And it was coming through the filter of my individual experience on this earth. So it was really my story, but I felt it was really touching on universal wisdom that we all share, just filtered through my experience. And it was about a really hot topic. So when I started talking about it also in the workshop, people were like, oh my God, this is so hot. Like actually nobody wants to get close to it. This is all about the rage that I had, for example, accumulated in myself about being in a system that wasn't designed for me. This system, when I call a system, I'm talking, for example, about corporate system, government system, so existing power structures. This system was not designed for the likes like me. I'm a woman. It's also not designed for other ethnicities, for neurodiversity, all kinds of other diversity. It was really designed for a very narrow minority, which is male, white. And so I was touching that. I was talking to that. And, how I was suddenly having these outbursts of rage about this. And I was really pointing it at people that are dear to me, like my own partner. My partner, though, is the epitome of that system. And he has also really climbed, the epitomes of current power in the current system, because amongst others, of course, he has lots of other qualities. But in that moment, it was narrowing down for me. It was because he was tall, white, male, straight. He was fitting that thing and he climbed. It was just never possible for me or anybody else. So when I directed that anger directly at him, it became deeply personal, despite the fact that I was saying, hey, this is not personal. This is just me expressing that range. But what happened was like he was hurt and then he lashed back out. So in that moment, I was voicing my victimhood. I made him the victim because I became the perpetrator. So this was the topic that I was stating, and I was bringing some other stuff. And people in the call were like, really, like you could see they were swallowing. This is so hot. I don't know how to get close to this. So I feel like what I'm touching also is something, when I'm allowing this, is to touch topics that are almost taboo, almost too difficult to talk about, too hot to talk about. And I start bringing it in a way that it becomes, mentionable and manageable, which is something that I really love from Fred Rogers, the children TV producer in the United States in the 60s. He said that, if something becomes mentionable, it becomes manageable.
Mr. Rogers. I love that so much. We were talking about him a little bit when I was staying with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is fun, right? Because you're bringing something that would describe me, like the way you're describing your partner is also the way people would describe me in terms of characteristics. So that feels fun. We can be in a hot topic. So here we are. That's energizing.
Oh. Yeah. And
the question underneath that though, really, right, is like, because there's the thing that ultimately is at the core of the challenge is a dominance hierarchy, right? Where one class of people is at the top of a hierarchy above other folks. And then the next step out of that is oftentimes egalitarianism, right? Like, how do we create a world that works for everyone? And so how do we all be equal? And that's more egalitarian instead of hierarchical. And the leading edge for me has actually been, and we talked about this together a little bit, I'm pretty sure, but it's like reintroducing the hierarchy on the other side, but it's a service-based hierarchy. And so when you realize you're an empowered, right, there's a maturity continuum we go through in life where when we're born into the world as a baby, we're completely dependent on the world. We cannot, I mean, we need to be fed, we need our diaper change, we can't walk, right? Like, we need to be if we need to physically move from A to B, we have to be carried there. We're totally dependent on mostly our parents, but we're dependent on the world to provide for our needs. And there's a continuum we move through in life of being increasingly more sovereign and autonomous and capable and resourced to take care of ourselves. And at some point, to me, the definition of really being an adult is there's a threshold at which we can give more to a system than we need from it. We all have needs for our entire life. I mean, we still need food. Well, we can go 3 or 4 days without food, but at some point we're going to need food.
Well, you have shown that you can go for it for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, we all have needs, and there's I don't know, I find in spiritual communities, oftentimes people talk about transcending needs. I'm not sure. And in my experience, we all have needs, but at some point we can give more to a system than we need from it. And to me, that's a real mark of maturity. And so what's interesting is if you gather, we're working on this in our incubator and our ecosystem. And really, I see this as what's the opportunity for us as a species and as a humanity right now is once we can give more to a system than we need from it, the game becomes, okay, how do we empower other people to move through this continuum as well? So there is a reintroduction of a hierarchy. You can see who feels more empowered, who feels more resourced, who feels more capable. And it's not a dominance hierarchy where now that since I have that, I'm going to be on top and keep everybody else down. It's a complete flip to being on the bottom of the system and holding it up. Exactly. You did the gesture, the hands rise and go, okay, I see here that I can give more than I need. Let's make sure my needs are met so I can be autonomous and resourced and able. And the purpose now for me is supporting other people stepping into their power so we can all rise and flourish and flower together.
Yeah, and I feel like what it is like, I wouldn't even call it anymore about, up or down. The feeling that I have about it is like that everybody is standing in its own space and its own power. And then there are some individuals that have the ability to pull up more people to that kind of space. And or pull it in. Let's pull it in, pull them more into their power. I think that's what it feels to me. That's what it is. It's like, certain individuals like you are having the ability to be more of service. And then by standing in your power, you kind of invite other people to stand also in their power. So to enter more into their space, because one of the phenomena that I feel like what we do with this constant noise, but also distraction that we have. I mean, like mobile phones, screens, constant messaging. It's constant, so much information available. We kind of walk off our center constantly. We walk away from us all the time. And if people really come back to them into the center of their power, this is when the magic basically happens.
Yeah, I love what you shared so much, and that's like the marching orders right now for me feel like, speak to the light in others from the light.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, yes, full resonance on this one. Yeah. And then it's not so much about that, you or I or somebody else has to do something so much, but it's more about this this quality of being. When you are, as you say, if you are the light, you call out the light in others.
Yeah, it's reminding me of the Marianne Williamson poem, the Our Deepest Fear poem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah, and
deepest fear is not the darkness, but our deepest fear is actually how much light we can give, right?
Yeah.
Something along those
It's
lines.
not that we are inadequate, it's that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our
That's
light,
it.
it's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Yeah. Might be my favorite poem of all time. But anyway, I feel I feel like 7% shy in saying that. So
Interesting. So what's happening there? Because if you feel it might be that other people experience that too. So what could that be, that shyness?
my business partner Stefan says that underneath the shyness is beauty. And so that something about that feels resonant in this moment. Like there's something really beautiful there for me. The impact that Marianne Williamson's poem, Our Deepest Fear, has had on me and on my life. And I guess, the thing I feel the most shy about is like, I really let that poem impact me, right? Like I didn't just take that in and think about it. I let it into the core of my being and change who I am as a person, and came out on the other side a different person, and continue to do that. I mean, even in just with anything in life really, but just speaking about this poem, it's like allowing myself to be impacted, allowing my
And can you feel
consciousness,
into that quality? What is that quality that is impacted, and what is different when you come out on the other end?
for me, there's a really deep sense of not settling. Like I feel it in concretely in the body. I feel it at the base of my rib cage.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
there's like a I notice it wants to come forward a little bit, like my heart's being a little bit more revealed. My rib cage kind of comes forward, almost like I would look up more, and there's an opening to life. There's an opening to God. There's an opening to the universe, and going, okay, like what is, like, really an opening to the light. What does the light want? And in a lot of ways, my life has become in a moment by moment practice, asking the light, what does it want, and being available for the light to be through me, to be me. And
yeah, so when you moved forwards, what I felt, because I was mirroring your movement,
yeah,
I felt that the diaphragm was becoming really free, right? So there was like almost like, yeah, it's volume, space, like you're taking your space kind of thing.
yeah, totally. It's interesting because before that, it was my rib cage was slightly tilted down, almost like I was self-dampening, maybe 5%. Exactly. Yeah, just a slight caving in on myself, which is a pattern I can have. And just now, the diaphragm does feel more open. The rib cage feels bigger, and there's a sense of like, okay, I'm here, like, or maybe just here we are.
Here we
But
are. Yeah,
yeah,
lovely. Yeah, and it's such an invitation as well, right? It's not, and I feel like it's maybe not only an invitation to people who are listening to this, but almost as like to this audio transmission or video transmission, but anything that is around in the field.
Yeah. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, so that comes back to the experience that we shared, because I genuinely believe that we co-created this experience or co-led it. I would even say co-lead it, because there's a real sense of leadership in there too. So in this field, it's like it's suddenly the frequency changes and everything starts tuning on it. It's like one of these resonance forks.
Yeah.
So I get
Tuning
this image.
forks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was getting the same way though, resonance forks. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the tuning fork, and you get it, and like everything that's in the field, again, all beings in the field start tuning into that, and suddenly it becomes stronger and self-containing and nourishing.
Yeah, it's like all forms, all forms. The way it's coming to me to say in this moment is all forms of God are made from and returned back to God. Like all of manifestation is born from and returns back to the source. And to me there's an intelligence, right? If I look at source, God, the divine, intelligence, capital I intelligence, there's a lot of words we can use to describe the supreme. And then there's all of its children, right? There's all the forms that are birthed from the divine and returned back to it. But there's something for me of when the divine enters the room, not that it's never not, but there's this tuning fork of everything goes, oh yeah, that's home base. That's the source from which all of this has arisen and will return to. And we can all get on the same page here in knowing that this reverberation, this quality of light, this experience that we're having, we can resonate with this and go, oh, now there's a oneness in all the form. There's here is the uniqueness that's in the unique, or the one that's in the many. Like here it is present in all of us, whether it's a coffee mug, whether it's a plant, whether it's a dog or a human being. There's nothing's not God, and there's just a pulsating, animating energetic to that, which we can all instantaneously remember and come home to and have here we are, welcome home, this is it.
I so love what you say about also remember home base, like home. And all of this stands for me, when I hear that, the term that comes is unconditional love. So whenever you can meet any experience that you have in your life from this home base, when this is your landing pad, or let's say this is the place where you can land any experience that you have in life, good or bad, doesn't matter. When this is the place where you can land it, then it kind of adds to it. It becomes, it becomes not necessarily transformed, but it kind of adds, it nourishes, it multiplies it. And somehow, and it contributes to something positive that's bigger than us.
The word coming to me is satiates. Like
what is this word?
Satiates is like when you eat when you eat a bite of food and it hits the spot and it has the nutrients and the taste, and you're like, there's like my body was wanting something and this was it, like this was the feeling. And there's a sense of fulfillment, a sense of, gratitude, but there's just a rush of like, this is it. this is the thing for me right now.
Yeah, it's a sense of total well-being as well, right? Yeah. And so from this, if I may come back to the hot topic that I started,
Please.
Introducing at this other workshop, I basically said the only way that this rage, this victim rage that can become the perpetrator and then creates new victims and then new perpetrators. And so you start getting a chain reaction and it never stops, It's like there's so much of it in the world. You're like, when you start looking at it, it's just incredible, right? So the only way I found that this energy can be met is actually with unconditional love. And, unconditional love might be a word that we have heard in many different ways. Maybe it has almost become a cliche. And it is so much more than that. It is so powerful. I feel, to me, it's like the ultimate life hack.
Yeah, and I sense that you're saying this, but it might be interesting to just carve it up into a masculine feminine thing, because there is, for me, what's really needed right now is both if we call it the divine feminine, unconditionally loving, unconditional presence energy. I love you no matter what. You can victimize yourself all day and I still love you. You're perfect. Just the unconditionally loving, unconditionally present space with the divine masculine, which is, and these are gender constructs. We could carve this up any way we want, but just from here, from this place, I'll say it this way, which is, I love you unconditionally no matter what, and I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to step up and step out of that, from victimhood into creatorship. I'm going to challenge you to take responsibility for your experience and to step up into your creatorship and to create a new moment for yourself. And I sense that was my experience. Was I was getting both of those from you and what you're saying, and I just feel compelled to name that.
Oh, and it is so true, because this for me is also this is for me what you call creatorship. This comes out for me as a word of leadership. It's personal leadership, because what it is, it's about being authentic and owning your impact. And that impact is on yourself, on others, on your environment, on your field, everything, right? And owning that. So it's calling up for that.
What do you mean? Let me pause you real quick. What do you mean? Let me just, I'm curious what you mean when you say owning your impact. Help me understand that better.
So owning your impact means, okay, so let's come back to the example of like where I'm starting to really get into that like real anger, like white hot anger. And it's like flames going up, and it's like I can feel a beast roaring in me like a fire spewing dragon. When that one comes up. And okay, and it gets out now and it has its impact, somebody gets burned in that fire. Yeah. To then also say, okay, good, it was me, and maybe there was also a part of me that was channeling an energy that was in the world. So when I do that, what is it that I need to do with this? Because it had an impact. I hurt somebody, and particularly it hurt somebody that I really care about, right? It's somebody I love. So how do I then take care of that impact that I had created? Mm-hmm. So what I did was I had conversations with Frank about it, where I took ownership of it, and I said, you know what? This was my rage, and it was something that came through me, and it was something that I directed at you, and I don't feel good about it that I hurt you personally, because this is not okay, because then I start continuing this circle. So I want to do something about this. And this helped me to start, create and think and start feeling about so what can we do about this? So this is what I mean by owning the impact. So you see it has an impact, so start taking ownership and start creating from it.
I love that last, and start creating from it, because my experience has been, and I see this in clients and friends and colleagues as well, is when we really step into our power, there is quite a lot of this volcano, dragon, fiery rage energy in us. It's like, whoa, underneath all this crap that I've been doing and participating in and indulging and acting out, there's some real raw primordial power here. The same power that birthed the universe is, at the core, accessible for all of us. And for me, what's been supportive is breathing and feeling that as deeply as I can. Again, allowing it to impact me and change who I am, so I show up in reality differently. But there's a nice distinction there between acting it out, as you said, acting it out, which can cause a lot of harm, versus breathing it, nurturing it, cultivating it, deepening into it, and then allowing it to move through us in a way that feels, we emanate it. We emanate this pervasive transmission of, I don't need to act it out because I'm embodying it, I'm radiating it, I'm emanating it into reality, and there's less of a distinction between that's primordial power and here's me, and more just I've let this in so much that it's moving through me more cohesively.
Yeah, and the really essential step in between, like the how lies in me in the acceptance and the unconditional love. So to give another example, so I had a client calling me up, and she said, "Oh, Nadja, I'm just so annoyed with myself. You saw me falling apart in, the last team meeting we had. And I just so hate it when I become this hot mess, And I said, so, there's a part of me that, like, the mother instinct gets immediately triggered, and I really want her to be held,
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, as the coach in me that says, okay, so how are you treating yourself when you experience that? And she's like, well, I'm not really kind. I'm kind of beating myself up. And so this is the interesting bit, is like when we experience that we are in these extreme powerful emotions, and when they start like really working through us, this primordial power force, as you called it, right? And it starts manifesting itself, and then it comes maybe out in a way that you feel embarrassed about. How are you then with yourself? Do you meet that with acceptance? And do you embrace it lovingly and just say, you know what, that just really happened, and I actually love myself, not more or less for it. It just is a part of me. And all it needs is just to be given. It needs to be poured in a different form. That's all, in itself, there's nothing wrong with it, right? There's this unconditional okayness, I think, that we talked about as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're really touching into a passion point of mine, which is when we do something that we're not a fan of, or when we do something that we wish had gone differently, the courage that it takes to not shame ourselves and guilt ourselves and blame ourselves, and to stand in the face of, this just happened, I'm going to fully take responsibility and ownership for this, and maintain a sense of, like, it's a part of life that sometimes I do things I wish had been done differently, and part of being an adult is like, okay, that just happened. Now what? Now I can take responsibility. I can say, here's what I did. I can ask, like, how was that for you? Like, is there anything I can do now? I mean, there's a real, to not go into woe is me and start shaming and blaming ourselves, and to stay and face the music in the moment takes a tremendous amount of strength.
I so agree. And I love also with the courage thing. Yeah, it takes then courage. And also what takes courage is then there's another element that I have seen myself do, is in the past, I would then just, for example, either I would beat myself up, but I would also make the other person wrong. If they would not have said this, or if they would not have done this, then this would not have happened. So actually the fault is on them. So starting to blame the other person for what has happened, right? Or somehow seeing some fault in them and making myself better because I somehow don't want to face, as you say, the music.
I have like right in the core of my chest, I'm just feeling a tremendous sense of appreciation in this moment. I feel really connected to you.
Yeah. Same here. And I can feel, despite the fact that we are on this video call, again, this field, the energy that is co-created, co-led, and things aligning. And the appreciation for anything then, right? There's this appreciation. I really feel the appreciation for you to be able to go into this co-creation, and so appreciate you for what you bring. And then in that, the appreciation for everything that's in the world, and that becomes just such a glow, such a outward moving sphere. Yeah.
The glow. I love the glow. Yeah. It's interesting though, because there is a sense of the third entity leading here.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm here, you're here, we're having our own impulses, but recently there's been an embodiment practice we've been doing, we meaning just people in physical proximity to me, which is like, we can hold hands or put our hands against each other, and I can take the leader and you can take the follower. And so you're in total 100% following, I'm in 100% leading. So I might pull you in one direction, push you in another direction, and to see what's that like to step into full leading and for you to be in full following. And sometimes that brings up issues for people. Sometimes it activates things that have been innate and dormant and latent. And then we switch. And so then you lead 100% and I follow 100%, and we see how that goes. And then the thing that I've been inviting recently is, what if we let go completely and let God lead?
Wow.
And that's a crazy experience. You do the first two and then you open up to the third and go, what if we just let go and see how the third party wants to move through us right now? And just the level of intelligence is so unfathomably higher than the way we were just leading each other. It's like, I mean, there's a real sense of beauty. I haven't recorded many of these yet. I'm going to share them on social media, but you can see, there are certain kinds of things. It's almost like a dance, an intuitive contact improv sort of thing. And there's a certain beauty that happens when I lead, and there's a certain beauty that happens when you lead. And then my experience has been, when you let go and let God lead, in the third one, the orchestra, the symphony starts. It's just like, we would have never fathomed to move like that, right? Like we're not running the show here anymore, and way cooler stuff happens.
Amazing, because when you speak to it, I can feel it physically happening, and what it does to me. Like, I can feel right now where I'm sitting, I feel a real grounding into my core, and there's a complete opening up happening. And I feel like, yes, right now when you were speaking, like it was actually the third entity coming in. And just like right now, just talking through you, and I was just a listening element in that, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Well, say more. What do you mean, the listening element?
Yeah, it's a receiving. It's a true receiving, and it's a receiving that goes beyond the usual. Okay, there are sound waves coming in my head, into my ear, and they're being transmitted into some electrical signals in my brain. But it's a listening that happens on my entire being. It's like, if I listen on this kind of level, or receive on this kind of level, it's like my entire being is altered afterwards in whatever minuscule or major way. It doesn't matter. It's just something has changed. Something has shifted.
I'm snapping my fingers as you're talking right now. There's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, so lovely. So, well, shall we bring it now to the thing about like what we thought we wanted to do with that co-creation with that third entity as well there?
I trust whatever's happening for you right now. So please take whatever direction you're feeling led to.
Nice. Yeah, so I feel like out of this, what I love to do is to share this with other people. I would love for people to step into this field, to step into this frequency and start experiencing that too. And I would love to create a co-created, co-shared experience for everyone in it, to also experience what I experienced, which is birthing your authentic voice, energetically, literally,
Yeah.
but also really immediately. There's no
Mm-hmm.
delay. It just goes through, right? So that's what I'm kind of almost yearning for.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that's happening with you when I'm saying that?
There's a question of like, so what's in it for me, Forrest? And I'm going, yeah, like there is. I want to have people to play with, and I want to have it's one thing to walk through the world and be in this practice as one body, one being, one person, one human. And then there's what happens, here you and I are having this experience together, and it's exponentially more fun in my experience. And so to have 10 or 12 people get together and for us to open up and have this experience together, I'm not sure we could overestimate what's possible in a space like this. I mean, we could probably use our minds and come up with all the craziest possibilities of what we think could happen and still not be able to scratch the surface of what's possible when we all open up and start playing life like this together. So I'm in this place of like, yes, birthing your authentic voice, and this is birthing an entire new way of being together. It's birthing a new world, it's birthing a new planet, it's birthing a new now. And that's my like, I'm so ready. I'm just so ready for the latent potential that I feel so like realized in to reveal itself in form.
Mm. Yeah, especially I love what you say about the latent potential, because it's always there.
Yeah.
But then what is it used for, or how is it tapped into for? Is it tapped into massive distraction, massive fear, massive stress, massive whatever? Or is it used for something where you say, this is really something that nurtures not only me, but you and everyone around. And when we start coming up to that level of like empowerment and sometimes you like the right words, like positive impact comes, right? The positive impact that could emanate from this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the phrase that keeps coming to me right now is there's a whole new world wanting to be born right before our eyes. And this is the way. This is the way.
Yeah. With collective intelligence, collective energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's you mentioned earlier the word well-being. Like this is a field of well-being. I mean, you can hang out in this field and the body has generative and regenerative processes, innate and organic, and healing's happening all the time. We can hang out in a field like this, and the intelligences that are active and moving through reality, I don't know if I have better words in it right now, can just flourish. And so I also feel we've been using this phrase recently quite a bit, fields of well-being. It's like just being together in this way, it's like the fountain of youth. We start to feel younger, we feel more vibrant, we feel more pervasive, more palpably alive, and just create like creativity and well-being and innovativeness and love and inspiration and invitations from beyond just show up, and things kind of take care of themselves in a lot of ways. So
When you're saying this, what I feel is like every cell of my body is listening. And every cell of my body is just like, ooh, we like this frequency, and I feel like I can somehow eject some of the blockages or damages that I accumulated over that lifetime that I'm in this body called Nadja,
Yeah.
And I'm kind of, and I'm also feeling like the water that's moving through our cells, it's kind of cleaning itself. It's like becoming these beautiful crystals. Have you seen this fantastic research? Yeah. Of like, when you expose water to fields of like where people say, I love you, I trust you, how beautiful the crystals were. But then also the flip side, like when you are in a field where people are angry and how the molecules are all wobbly and no clear shapes and it's all amorphous. And so I feel like when I'm listening to this, when my body is listening to this, all the water is just forming these like beautiful crystals, and it's like beauty emanating from within the core of every cell.
Yeah. Hear, hear.
Yeah.
Intelligence is becoming more intelligent. Wholeness becoming more whole.
Yeah. As we are grounded in this universal truth of what I call unconditional love. Yeah.
The phrase, the base of being is coming up for me right now.
Yeah, it's almost returning through to the origin, but kind of transformed, purified, lighter, truer, more essential.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm entering a complete stillness right now. I feel like it is a stillness. It is a stillness that is at the end of the spectrum of like high frequency.
Yeah.
You go higher in a frequency and suddenly all the waveforms start overlapping and there's nothingness, like stillness. Or the other end of it, where you come from very low frequency, where you go lower and lower and suddenly there's no waveform anymore. It's the same. So it's like a circle. I feel like we were just landing in that stillness, in that emptiness.
What's it like to be still?
Yeah, it's an incredible, joyful experience, and there's something that's like, I hear kind of laughter, and then there's breath. Yeah. Like the stillness that is at the end and at the beginning of everything. And what's for you there now?
The face feels like it's melting, like I'm on acid or something. There's like the face is kind of like falling off. There's a voice over here that's like, hey, aren't we gonna need that?
Oh.
So there's like yeah, there's like a Picasso painting happening. It's like,
Oh my, I can so see it. The nose is going in one direction.
Yeah. It's just like, well.
A a complete deconstruction of our perception, right? Yeah. Yeah, for me, there was an incredible softening happening in the diaphragm, and then into the solar plexus, stomach region. And it's a kind of sweet, kind of gentle softening. Totally inviting.
I feel there's you were speaking a little bit about this birthing your voice workshop, and I just wanted to double click on that real quick, and because there's an aliveness for actually doing this together next month. Today's July 19th, and we're talking about it a month from now in August at your home in Den Haag doing a gathering like this. So I want to create some space to listen for that together, and also for anyone who's hanging out with us right now and watching this video or listening to this podcast to know that you're invited to come be with us in person and be in a field like this one with Nadja and me. So yeah, maybe you want to say more around what's coming up for you in relationship to this possible gathering.
Yeah, so I can see, as you say, the mind cannot maybe fathom all of the things that can happen, but I can see a lot of things happening. Like I see my home, like the carpets out, all the space cleared away in my living room. We look out into the garden, which is almost a wilderness, but a kind of lovingly shaped wilderness. And then from there, this energy, we're surrounded by a lot of living beings. And then in that room, how that field will start building. And there's this, I remember, Forrest, you were making a sound to that field. It's like, whoa. It goes like, whoa, 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 whoa. You make the sound much better than I do right now. But there's this certain field. And then I see people sitting down in this field and experiencing that. And then the individual transformations that might start happening, totally unexpected. And it's not a forceful thing. It's a very gentle invitation to just be in this and experience whatever might flow. And it can take any shape or form, any kind of manifestation. And what I see around this is like Laura is doing a fantastic way in facilitating this, providing some lovely but simple food like tomato with mozzarella, olives, hummus, baguette, whatever, and some very fresh water. And, I can feel like that maybe at some moments we would like to have some music or not. And that maybe people also would like then to go into one-on-ones afterwards, because maybe they want to deepen some of the experiences that they were having. And I believe we said we were open for that too, to take then people into one-on-ones if they wanted to. Yeah. Right. And so, yeah, so this is how I start seeing this. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see I'm right in this moment. I'm in your home on the first floor at the front of the house, looking back into the area where we were hanging out, when the common area where you were having this experience. And I can see people in your kitchen. I can see people out in the garden on the back patio. I can see people in your living area, and I hear jazz music. And it's like that may be concretely happening. There might actually be jazz playing, but there's really the connection to the twinkle, the jump, the jazz that's in the field and in the space, and it's really working its way through people. And there's a cadence, and there's a rhythm, and there's a harmony and an aliveness that's really felt in the space. And there's a certain kind of connection we all have when we're all really feeling it together. I mean, there's like, oh yeah, here I am, and here you are, and I see you, and you see me, and I feel you, and you feel me, um, and we're kind of dancing a little bit. You know, there's a little, we're jiving, maybe is a better word. And
Yeah, jiving. There's a certain
yeah,
jiving, and it's, yeah, totally, yeah. And it's, again, it's this light, flowy energy, and it's nothing, nothing is forced, nothing is there for demonstration. It's just totally innate,
yeah,
totally intrinsic. Yeah,
uninhibited.
yeah.
Yeah.
So full permission. There's a full permission for complete authenticity and a gentleness in that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that it's practical. I also want people to know that they're able to bring what really matters most in life, and that that can be held in this energy, and can be nourished by it and resourced by it. But to bring your relationship challenges or your financial challenges, your life purpose, goals, your dreams for your future, what you feel most called to contribute to in your life on the planet right now, the causes and cares that you have that are most precious to you, the passions that are most alive for you right now. Like the there's the levity, and there's also the depth. Like it's a large field we can hold. We can be with what's happening for you, and we welcome all of you into the space to be a part of the jazz.
Totally. Yeah. And allow it to jive you and to groove you, and this permission to come and then start shaping it, right? And like, from that shaping, like, what does this then mean into when you go out into the world again? So you enter this field, but what does it then mean when you bring it with you into the world? How will that manifest? How will that take shape or form? Yeah.
Well, I'm aware we don't have anywhere digitally in this moment that people can go to find out more information, but I imagine, you know, if anyone's listening to this or watching this, um, you know, I'll put our websites in the show notes, and you can obviously email me, forrestbwilson@gmail.com. I'm happy to hear from you. Just put a subject on there like Netherlands authentic voice retreat, and I'd love to hear from you and get you in. If this feels like if you're getting a full body, full being yes to this invitation, then let's have you come join us. um yeah, I don't know, Nadia, is there anything else you want to say on that line of
Great. Yeah, no,
exploration?
and I think within a couple of days we'll also create a kind of landing page for this, quite simple, so people can, say, hey,
Yeah,
hands up, I really want to be there. I really
yeah,
want to be part of that field. Then yeah.
yeah. So, and I can update the show notes when we have that. So if you're listening to this show, just check the notes, because I'll add a Netherlands gathering registration here kind of button that you can click on and fill up a form and reach out. So that might be there by the time that you hear this recording.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it feels good, huh?
It does. Just yeah, that sharing and that togetherness, and seeing that happening, and how there's a ripple effect happening from this gathering, from this field, and then you can see all these individual people going out into the world, and the ripple effect continuing from this, and it's almost like a healing wave, if you want to. I mean, it's not a healing, but for the
Yeah,
lack of better word, it's like
of
that. Yeah.
course. Yeah, it's like this kind of a nuclear bomb of unconditional love
Yes.
goes off in the field, and it just
Yes.
sends out
It's a
waves and
nuclear bomb
ripples.
of well-being,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly, exactly. Oh, that's so deeply resonant. It's like so I
Hmm.
feel this invitation's given with freedom. Feel free to take it or not, but
Yeah.
I feel a really compelling invitation to just invite you, if there's anything is there anything that the voice of the genuine in you wants to share in this moment?
Just a real welcome and also an openness of like, please come to my home. If you feel that this is really calling out to you, just come. We just so love to have you be there with whatever, what Forrest already said, with whatever you bring. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I'd love to, if you're open for it, I'd love to give you some appreciation. But before I do that, I'll just check to see if there's anything else you'd want to share.
No, I'm fully here, fully ready to receive.
Yeah. Are you open for some appreciation?
Oh, totally.
Cool. Okay. Well, I just want to name what a treat and what a joy and a privilege it's been to meet you. I feel really grateful that we've connected, and I'm so grateful to you for inviting me into your home to stay with you and to meet your family and to get to hang out with you in this way, to do this, podcast recordings and the conversations we get to have, and just to be in this field together is so deeply nourishing for me and enlivening. Like, I just feel so much more alive hanging out with you. I'm really, really grateful for how you're playing life, and I experience you as so genuine and just so here for life and for what's happening in the moment. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and the gift of your presence in my life.
Thank you. I can. It's just really. It's landing. It's also really landing in my pelvic bowl. Like it's like a total reception. Like. And the feeling is so mutual. I have this. There is a certain purity and clarity when I experience you with me in the field. There's a certain light, for the lack of better words. There's a certain light that you bring, and it just kind of raises the frequency of everything. And I so enjoy this. And there's also this, there's this loving quality in there that I also that I so appreciate about anyone and anything that I create. There's this, and it's not a loving quality that just goes out there and does stuff, but a loving quality that is just there. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm going to be letting that in for a while, so I'm going to just keep receiving. Keep receiving. But thank you. Thanks for being available for this connection and recording, and I'm excited to share with the world. I'm really grateful this is happening.
Same thing here. So love it that you responded to the idea of doing this together and just create this field for more people to share with. So I'm really like, wow, super alive on this.
Yeah, likewise. Okay.
Well, thanks for having me.